What's up everyone, my name is Michael Whitehead, and if you know me, then you probably know about that car right back there. It's my 2018 Focus ST, and I've done just about everything under the sun with it. It's been through rallycross, track days, autocross, some illegal time attack events, and some legal time trial events, and it's done me well up until this point. But now with entering Global Time Attack, we finally got to do some upgrades to it. So the first upgrade we're doing is suspension, and that's what we're going to get into today. So, as per Global Time Attack rules in the enthusiast class, I'm allowed a single adjustable coilover, which means I had quite a few options, but ultimately I partnered up with Fortunato. Now, they have two options. They have the 500 series and the 510 series, both of which are great options, but the 510 series is a little bit more track orientated, so that's what we're going to be installing today. Alright, so I got a little ahead of myself and I went ahead and installed the rear suspension already. Now, it's really simple to install. You just pull the springs, put new springs in, swap over the buckets, get your adjusters dialed in right, and then set your preload on the damper. Now I'm going to go through that with you real quick and just show you how to do all that. Our new coil spring, along with our coilover adjuster, is installed, along with our new shock. And as you can see, that right there is going to be your adjuster for your dampening, whether you want it softer or harsher ride. And then up top, it's just two 13mm bolts to pull the old shock and install the new one. It's one 15mm on the back side right there, and then another 15mm over there, if you can ever see it, right there, to drop the coil bucket. So, disassembly and installation is a relatively simple process. It involves the two 13s, which I pointed out, the one 15mm for the shock, and then another 15mm for the lower control arm. Once you've dropped all that, your spring and your shock will come out no problem. Installing it's a little different. In the installation process, you actually leave the damper out initially. You get your ride height set initially with your coil spring, get the adjuster set right so you've got exactly the same wheel gap on both sides, or different wheel gaps if you'd like that, just depending on the way your car's set up for balance wise. And then you set the preload on your damper. Now, I set all my stuff up and I set it down on the ground and I thought I had it just right, and I did some more measuring and it turns out I didn't get it quite right. So I've actually got to go 1/4 of an inch up with this side of the car. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So now we've got our coil spring out, our damper is disconnected, and our lower control arm is loose. Now we're going to go ahead and reset the height on your coil adjuster. If it'll ever focus, who knows? You gonna focus or not? Guess not. Alright. Anyways, you guys get the idea. Resetting the height on this is extremely simple. This comes with an Allen key that's supplied from Fortunato. Go ahead and break this bolt loose. Once it's loose and you can turn it, go ahead and give your measurement. Right now we are sitting at 1 3/8. And I know I need 1/4 an inch, so that means I gotta go to 1 5/8. So you just adjust up. Take a look. 1 5/8. With your ride height now reset, go ahead and reinstall the coil adjuster. Get your bolt started on the bottom. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? There we go. Go ahead, tighten it up, make it nice and tight. Don't forget this little plastic shim right there, and your top spring piece, stay on. Go ahead and drop the arm, put the new bucket in, make sure everything's seated, and then you use your jack to apply pressure and preload the spring. Once you've preloaded the spring, you adjust your damper accordingly. We have our jack in place up against the bottom of the coil bucket. Our spring is preloaded, and we're gonna go ahead and set our damper now. So basically, you can spin this in and out, which basically threads the whole body in and out and sets the shock height. You don't want it to be too compressed, because if it's too compressed, then you're not going to get all your suspension travel. So setting this preload properly is... We now have our preload set. The 15mm bolt is installed into the damper. You got the 213s up there. Everything's hard mounted. You still got to lock this out. And when you have your preload set, you're going to notice that your shock, or your spring rather, sits flush against that bucket. And this can't extend anymore because it's actually holding the suspension from traveling any further down. So now you've got a good amount of up travel and down travel. So this is a preload set in the suspension. We'll go ahead and lock this tab out. Once we determine that the ride height is good, I still have to double check that. Once that's all set, then we'll move on to the front. So you can see we're right around 3 1/8, right at the outer edge right there. And on this side, we're about the same. Neighbors, I didn't know we had any. The rear ride head's set on the car. We've got both dampers preloaded properly, and we'll still have to make dampening adjustments, but that'll be more so for the track day. Right now, they're both set at 12 clicks exactly. There's 24 clicks of total adjustment. So right in the middle is where we're gonna start, and we'll go from there when we dial it in. And with the rear set, that means it's time to install these guys. This should be awesome. Super excited about this. So, preload on the front suspension is adjusted through this collar right here. We're going to loosen it up, get a measurement of our spring end to end, which should be 7 inches, and then we're going to have to add a 1/4 inch of preload to it, so it'll be down to 6 3/4. So we'll go ahead and break this free real quick. Break free, and then loosen it up. Make sure the spring is fully extended. Start to have a little bit of play in here. It's getting loose, and our spring's extended. So now we'll get a measurement of our spring. It's exactly 7 inches. Now we can set our preload accordingly. So you got to preload it to 6 3/4. Once that preload's set, we can adjust the height independently of the preload itself, and we won't have to worry about it again. Close. Look. Not quite. And that's 6 3/4 right there. So go ahead and lock it in place. And double check your measurement. Yep, right on the money. Now, just repeat for this one. Alright guys, so we're back, and it's much later in the evening. The time lapse died, so I don't even know when that cut out. But we've got one half of the suspension on, and I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the other half of the install. So, as you can see, we've got the one mounted. Now, currently, it's not mounted up top because I'm waiting for some paint to dry. We went ahead and drilled our hole, took a 3-inch hole saw to the top of the strut tower. I'll be showing you that process on that side over there in just a few minutes. But waiting for some paint to dry, and then once this is dry, we'll go ahead and remount everything. We've got our camber adjusted, and we've got our height set, so I'm just going to copy the height here on this side, and then put it on the same exact setting for this guy. And then install him and see how close we get. If we need to make some more adjustments, we will. So, before we install the new setup, got to pull the old setup out. Real simple. It's going to be 3 13mm bolts up top, 1 8mm bolt here, 15mm bolt with an Allen head here for the sway bar end link, and the same thing down here. down there. I already disconnected that side. And then a 15mm bolt right there. Now once you pull him out, you're actually going to thread him in the other side backwards and with a piece of metal behind it, and it'll spread the knuckle open so you can get the strut out of it. And just so we know, these are the three 13mm that go to the top of the strut. So when you want to remove the strut, you can see it's driven into the knuckle right there. This bolt, you send it through backwards with a piece of metal, which in this case is just a 15mm wrench, into the back of it, hit it with an impact, it stretches it, and it's loose. And so it should move. It is a bitch to get this off though, so be warned. There's a better shot of how that wrench actually works. You see it's driven right down into there and spreads it open. So, as you can see, the hole saw jumped around quite a bit on me and left quite a mess, but after switching to the impact, I was actually able to get the thing drilled out and didn't have that jumping problem as much anymore. So it's through both layers of steel. I'm going to have to take a carbide bit and burr it out a little bit, get it cleaned up, and then once that's all cleaned up, we can go ahead and install the strut. We went ahead and maxed out the camber on the strut and installed it in place. It's just mocked up there. It's not actually attached to the knuckle or anything down there. But just as a visual representation, you can see that even then, we're still getting with a 3-inch hole saw right there, still can't get to that camber adjuster or the Allen head to adjust our camber. So I'm going to have to go with a burr bit and just clean up that corner right there and get enough clearance. Same thing over here, just get a little bit more clearance there. And then we'll go ahead and paint it and install the strut. As you can see, now we have clearance. Not much, but it's there. You can move them, you can adjust it. And that's all that matters. Again, looks like not very good. It's not pretty at all. But it'll get the job done. Throw a quick coat of paint over it so none of that rusts. And then move forward with the reassembly process. So, installation of the strut is fairly straightforward. Simply slides into place. Make sure you've still got your bolt back there, keeping the knuckles spread apart. Don't forget to hook up your ABS wire mount right to here when you install your sway bar end link. Sway bar end link gets installed, and then everything gets put into the top of the strut tower right there. So, since on the other side I've already done the hard work of figuring out my ride height, I can simply translate it over to this side. And we're looking for 2 3/8, which I did set it outside of the car, but just double checking, and we are exactly where we want to be. So theoretically, this should be exactly the same ride height as the side over there. Now, as we saw in the rear, I had to adjust it even though I set them exactly the same. So that might be the case here, but we're going to find out. Alright, so that's it. We've set all of our heights, we've verified the ride height everywhere, and the last thing we have to do is actually lock it down. So I've already done the rears, and now I just need to do the fronts. So what you're going to do is take a flathead screwdriver, hook it up to your lock ring, and hit it with a hammer. Now Fortunato says you have to do this if you want to ensure that this doesn't come loose, and you don't want anything on your suspension coming loose because that could be catastrophic. Who knows what could happen? For all you know, you might end up hitting a child, or a wild boar, or a small deer, or a small deer child. So beware. So that's it. My hat's a shade darker and my focus is a touch lower. I'm gonna go ahead and do a test drive, make sure everything fits, nothing rubs, lock to lock, all good, stuff like that, and then be uploading a first impressions drive real soon after this video drops, so be on the lookout for that. And got a track day March 10th, so official testing is going down then. But until then, really just gonna be street driving and maybe some back roads, stuff like that, a little bit of fun. Catch you on the next one, bye.